right, welcome to. Wow, we switched spots. Did you see this? How about this, Derek? In the middle of the intro, we now are in different spots. The beauty of StreamYard. Welcome to the Prospect Podcast. I'm Coach Schumann. As always, I have Coach D. He's sitting there in the middle today, and we have a fantastic guest today, Coach Wickard, Coach Jim Wickard. We're excited to talk to him about sprints, speed development. He's also obviously a renowned hurdle coach, where he's really developed some fantastic athletes from that standpoint. He's coached at the highest level of coaching in college at Division I level. He was at TCU. He was at Air Force, Texas Tech, UNC, Louisiana Tech, Chadron State. Himself, he was an elite hurdler himself, NCAA qualifier, school record holder in the 60 hurdles at Utah State. So he's coached many All Americans, national qualifiers. He's coached some of the really top athletes with respect to sprints and in the hurdles. So when he was at Texas Tech, he had 8 All Americans in the hurdles and sprints, multiple conference champions. So we're excited to talk to him and really dive into a lot of stuff with respect to speed, athlete development. And so, welcome to the podcast, Coach.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to join you guys.
Yeah, it's great to have an opportunity to coach because we to talk with a coach who's coached at sprints at the highest level at the Division I level. So I don't know if you've ever perused any of our a million podcasts we've done, but we have a gigantic emphasis,
Yes.
and I don't know if it was on purpose or an accident, but gigantic. And it's called the Prospect Podcast because originally I was doing stuff with like athletes with recruiting, and it really evolved with when Derek really started going out and getting some different guests. It started with like some local guys and just evolved from there. And I think we originally started mostly with football guys, but we started diving heavily into the athlete development thing, and really just we went down the rabbit hole, not just for ourselves but also in bringing in guests, and it's really blossomed into something great where it's kind of an underlying thing to a lot of the stuff that we do, not just sport related, but obviously athlete development related. So we're excited to talk to you. I wanted you to kind of, before we dive into all that stuff, just talk about, your background as an athlete, and then coaching and kind of the evolution of your career and what you're doing now with Tier 1 athlete,
Yeah.
taking us up to that.
Well, when I was at Utah State, I was there from '01 to '06. Um, and just like any other college athlete, as your career gets to an end, you're like, what am I going to do next? And I was a volunteer um, strength and conditioning coach during my time I was there. You guys will probably know these names, but Coach Uwe, um, he was under House, and then Coach Uwe was at Utah State during that time, and then he went into University of Minnesota for strength and conditioning. I don't know what he's doing now. It's been a while since I've talked to him. Um, and then a guy named Brady Holt
Mhm.
was strength and conditioning coach there, uh, and then some other people as well. That's pretty known in the strength and conditioning. So when I was there, Coach Holt basically looked at me and said, "Hey man, what you gonna do with yourself?" I'm like, I don't know." And so it was him and being around the other guys that made me realize, like, hey, I want to coach. And of course, and they said, well, okay, you want to coach, but what do you want to do? Anyone can coach, you know?
Right, right.
And so they kicked me out of the office and said, don't come back until you can have a answer to that question and why and where you want to go and why you want to go there. So I brought a list of like 20 different schools. I said, what? I want to be a track coach. I brought in my lists and they said, okay, you have the list. Now you're going to start emailing every single one of those coaches. So that's when I started emailing to a slew: South Carolina, UN, um, to Texas, Texas Tech. I went to UCLA. I mean, the list just grew, and it was basically around, because I'm passionate about the hurdles. It was around, hey, I'm reaching out to those schools that are really good and have a great history of sprints and hurdles. because I wanted to learn from those coaches. And so after that, that's when I got a email back from Coach Kitley, Wes Kitley. That's the longtime head coach at Texas Tech still, and he said, "Hey, more happy to volunteer." Obviously, for those that know it, right, volunteer means I'm giving my time. I'm not getting paid a dime. So I ended up moving to Lubbock. I was basically helping coach every single day. I was traveling to meets. I was during that time as a volunteer, you could do some little bit of recruiting, but it was mainly filling in questionnaires, sending stuff out, emails, but no like physical calling because you couldn't do that. So I was learning the recruiting ins and outs. So sitting in the meetings, learning from the great sprints and hurdles coaches that were there at the time, um, and then was there for 2 years, and then I was like, man, I got to get a job.
Yeah.
And at that time, I thought, you know what? To get a job, I'm gonna have to get my master's because it seemed like an undergrad wasn't enough. So I started trying to apply for masters all over the place. Since I'm originally from Nebraska, Shattern State had a GA spot open for sprints and hurdles coach. And honestly, in my head, I was like, if I don't get this job, I'm not supposed to coach because my thing was, well, at Shattern State, they recruited me. I know who the
Right.
coach is. They know who
Right.
I am.
Right. This should
uh,
happen. This should
yeah,
happen no matter
it
what.
should. So luckily it did. So I went to Shattern State, got my master's, and that was all because I literally in my head I thought, well, I'm gonna have to have a master's degree to get a job. So I got my master's degree, still couldn't find a job, still no interviews, and then I went and volunteered at UNC with the great Antonio Pettigrew and Dennis Craddock at the time. And then my cousin worked for Duke University in the athletic side. So I was a personal trainer at Duke's rec center for their students and worked that for my income and then learned and coached while I was at UNC for track for a year. And then still tried to get a job, couldn't get a job. So I gave it up. I said, you know what, Lord, if it's not meant for me to be a track coach, I'll quit. So I quit, and I was with Cintas for about 3 months, and I get a call out of the blue saying, "Hey, would you be interested in the job at Louisiana Tech?" And so I quit my job, and I got my first paying job at Louisiana Tech in 2010. And that starting salary was $23,000 a year as a Division 1 track and field coach. And then from there, I went to TCU, then Air Force Academy, and then I got out of college coaching in 2020 and moved back to Texas where I am now.
Any COVID was that any COVID relation, or just was it just time? Was it because
It,
we've
it was a
seen
little it was a little bit of
COVID ended a
mixture.
lot of shit for a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
it was a little
Good
bit of
point.
mixture of both. Cuz I always said, "Hey, if I ever get married and have a kid, I'll be done with college coaching."
right because you
Because I
need.
wa-
I mean, because it's a different.
it's a whole different, always gone, always traveling. I want to be more present. I was honest with that, but in all actuality, would I actually really have done it? Probably not.
Right. Right.
So the Lord allowed situations to happen. And so during COVID, I had an interview with, unfortunately, the boss I had passed away. And some of the things that he said, and I was like, I left infuriated, mad, and I went to my wife then that time, and we had a 1 year old, and I said, I'm done.
Right. Time.
And so I went in and gave my resignation, and we moved back to Texas, and I told my wife, said, "Hey, I'm going to do tier 1 athlete. This is what I'm going to do full time. Are you okay with it?" She said, "Sure." So from 2000 to present, now I've been private coach, doing my own business, trying to make that ends meet that way, and so it's been good. So that's been my journey in my coaching career.
That's phenomenal. So it is, it's a difficult thing because when you walk away from college, the competitive juices of what drive you is even though you're not getting paid and or your time's getting constrained, all that kind of stuff. But that competitive juices that you felt as an athlete, it's like the closest thing to that. So
Mm-hmm.
that you can get. That, I always say, at least for me, other people are different. It never completely mimics what it was like to do it, but but it's as close as you can get. You know what I mean? Without
Oh
actually
yeah.
doing it. So it's very hard to do that. And even when you walk away, like it's not like you've walked away. You're still involved.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the hardest things. It's why one of the things I read, and I think it really is true. Like you only have like 10 years that your kids really look at you as like you are the center of their world,
Yes. Yep.
and, and then they start to get like friends of their own.
Yeah. I don't want nothing
Uh,
to do with you. Don't hold my hand. Get out of here.
Right. Yep.
right,
Totally.
like you start. Yep, I'm in the probably the last 2 years of that with my son. Now like he's going to be 11. Like he's starting to pull away a little bit on some things, but he's still there. So I might have a year or
Yep.
two, but
Yep.
I could already see the difference between now and just 2 years ago. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Where everything was relied on you, but.
For sure.
Uh, I think personally, everybody has different objectives, and obviously I respect everybody's objectives. But when you make that decision, it is, I don't think you ever regret that part.
No, you don't. Definitely as a coach, though. I mean, I've been in it, behind closed doors, at the Division One level, and I can only speak as track coaches. I think I
Right,
can speak a little bit for S&C. We don't get paid. There's it's not a value unless you're a SEC coach with
right,
the football team. But if you're an Olympic SEC coach or you're an Olympic
Yeah. Here's
sports coach, there's no value. There's no support. You're not getting paid much, um and you're constantly gone and grinding all the time, but behind closed doors it's always like, man, I just want to get out of here. Like, they don't like it, but the fear of, I don't want to leave
right.
right.
because I don't know if I'm going to get a job in the corporate world, because corporate
Right.
world doesn't see, well, how can you relate to this? Well,
Right, right,
you're a
right. How can
coach,
I,
you're like,
how are you valued when you've never been in this world? Or, what's the connection that, I have people that have, this is all they've ever done and they've already shown that they're successful. And you're coming from a world that, I don't, what is that? Right.
yeah,
Like, so it's hard.
exactly. So there was a little bit of hesitation, but at the same time, like you were saying, is like, but there's so much value that could be here. I don't know what it's
Yep,
gonna look like. But now being out of it, oh man, the freedom that it brings. Obviously, you got other things too you got to deal with, but to reclaim your time and reclaim it of how you see coaching and how you really want to do coaching. I mean, I wouldn't go back unless it was the right money, the right situation, the right support. But even with that, I would still go, ooh, do I really want all the other crap that's gonna come with it?
Right.
well, that's a big part of it, and everybody obviously has different priorities, but you're 100% right. It's there is the biggest thing about going doing things for yourself with outside of a system, quote unquote, is your ability to make your own decisions.
Yep.
So, and people are like, "Oh, does going into business mean you're going to make more money?" Well, not necessarily. It can.
Yep.
It may not. It really depends on a lot of things. But one thing you do get is the ability to make decisions with your time. Right? You can,
100%.
and that even goes for even if you're working for somebody in the outside world. Like you could be like, okay, I want to do this job, right? But when you're in a system, coaching wise, you're in a system that's hard to get out of and hard to have any control over the time
Yep.
that's allocated in a day because there's a lot of daily tasks that have to get done,
Yep.
and there's no way around it, right? Especially in the space you're in, and it can be lower paid, right? But it depends on what you're trying to trade off. But there's no doubt the biggest value you get is your ability to control your time and make a choice on your time. That's really
Yep.
it. Make a choice on your time. To me, like that's one of the things that I've always valued. It's always been hard for me to ever take that step to want to go to college or even now go back to coaching high school for that reason, because of being a head coach in high school, because I have to be here at this time, I have to do this at this time, I have to do that, and it has
Yep.
to be and I have to adhere to what this guy wants and that guy wants and that guy wants and that guy wants, and
Yep.
try to figure out, and administratively trying to figure out and read the person who's making some decision that may have zero to do with whether you're good or not,
Yep.
or really zero to do with any of that. It's really just you're trying to figure out what their decision might be and how it might impact you.
Yep.
But everybody's different, right? There are people that love that and people that don't. So
Yep.
it's cool to hear that you kind of have an understanding of what you're interested in, and
Yep.
I think that's part of the whole journey. That's the beauty, to me, by the way, of the expansion of sports as a whole. Like when I see all the negative sides and things, and there are negatives to things to here and there with youth sports, but one of the nice things is that everybody actually has an opportunity that wants to be in sports to have a career in it. Like you don't
100%.
have, no one's saying you're going to be a billionaire, okay? Like, but you can make a living, right? And so, whereas just 20 years ago, like if you didn't go to a school system or a college system, there
Yep.
was
Or high school. Yep.
very high school, right? The very little opportunity for you. So I think that is a positive part, and impacting athletes' lives can come in many different forms, right? The key is,
Mm-hmm.
are you willing to impact them, and that doesn't matter where you're doing that. To me, if you're
100%.
willing. So
Agree.
I wanted to dive in because I went in my soapbox for a second there. I wanted to dive in on really kind of your world from a speed standpoint, because your experience is really fantastic, and um in your background, and when we talk a lot about speed and speed development in athletes, there's a lot there's some fast moving schools of thought, which you probably know, feed the cats, right? Okay, and we've had all those guys on. So, and me and Derek love some things about it. Like our favorite thing is obviously rank, record, publish. We've always been on board with that. I always say, like in track, we were rank, recording, publishing always, but
Yeah.
but but it's just kind of scale. I would say that he's scaling it to the next level, and the tools that are available are really cool to be able to do that more. So, but I would love to talk. You just kind of dive in on what your thoughts are as a base background on speed development, some of the kind of the important things to you, and
Mm-hmm.
then we could really kind of start diving into some things
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
Well, my first, my, you know, I've definitely learned a lot, but I still feel there's so much stuff I still have to learn. So, what I give, obviously, there's gonna be some biases towards as my viewpoints and opinions and stuff. So what I say doesn't make it 100% right. No, it's just my way of thinking and just viewpoint and a little bit of my own biases. At the end of the day, there's obviously multiple ways to get the job done, and based off of the talent and the kids that you have before you, and then also your resources that you have. But to me, I do look at as the number one foundation is movement expression, movement qualities. And the only reason I say that is because my experience as a college coach is, I'd get a kid in, they'd be really fast, and I'm like, man, you have no body awareness. So no kinesthetic awareness, none whatsoever, no proprioceptive awareness. You don't know where your limbs are at in space. You're just out there just running. And so for me, movement expression in a controlled sense is so, so important. And then after that, then it goes down to balance and stability. and stuff. And that's because a lot of kids that I'd see come to me in, as freshmen in college, they couldn't skip. They couldn't do a good job of balancing on one leg and controlling it,
Right.
and just like, hey, do a tiny little 180 in the air and land in a good athletic position. They're
Right.
all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck? You don't
Yeah.
know what a skip is?
Yeah.
You can't you
Stuff
can't
that
do
you
a
do on the
lateral
playground at
lunge?
recess in third grade, right? Like,
It,
and you're like, whoa, okay. Like,
exactly. So to me, I go back to those are the key fundamentals to sprinting. And I mean, and overall, even just to overall athleticism, and then from there, after that, and that obviously never stops from even when you're youth to even pro, right? Fundamentals are always going to have to be the fundamentals, always have to be the base. And then from there, then it goes to, again, it's still okay. Can we slow things down and teach them the positions in acceleration to max velocity, to foot contact? Can we teach those positions so they can feel it? And so for me, I'm like, hey, we got to learn to crawl, then stand, walk, jog, and then sprint. So to me, it's then slowing things down, teaching the basic movement patterns and of acceleration, max velocity, foot contact. So, and then as I'm doing that, my whole thing is teaching the kids, can you feel this position? Yes. Okay. And team sport athletes are the worst at this. Track and field gymnastics are great at it. They know what their body, they're more aware of their body than team sport athletes.
team
So
sport
it's,
guys are brutal. It's
yes. So it's like, slow things down. Okay, tell me what you felt. Right? When you ask that question, like, huh? Tell
That's
me what I.
absolutely that is Barton the top reaction of what do you wait, first off, what are you asking me? Why are you like what do you mean? What do I feel? What does that have to do with anything that we're trying to talk? There's like this gap of disconnect, and it's then they like have to understand, like you have to reiterate, like, yes, I'm really asking you this. Like, what do you feel? Like, tell me.
Correct.
They've never been asked that question
Nope.
ever before in their life. Like, it's
No.
just in regard to this, like when it comes to sports or trade, they have no clue.
Yep. And so then from there, right, as a coach, I feel it's my responsibility to teach them the whys. Why are we doing this? Here's the reason. Here's how it correlates. Here's how it affects things. And so obviously that takes time. And so I'm big on ask questions. Like there's no such thing as a bad question if you don't, and communication is critical in my opinion also to speed. So just because I said something, don't go, okay, coach, I understand. Because if I didn't communicate it correctly to you and you don't understand, and you're just saying, I understand because you feel like if you say, coach, I don't get it, you're going to get cussed out because, hey, I'm the coach, just shut up and do it.
Right.
So that's the third component to me is just communication, allowing them to be honest and say, coach, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't get that. And then obviously trying to then break it down so they can try to execute it in the right way. And then lastly, you know, there's two different, right? Speed to speed, right? There's two different camps. At the end of the day, speed by definition is stride length times stride frequency. That's speed. Right? Now you get in team sport, right? You're gonna have your deceleration, reacceleration, your eccentric, your plant and stuff. So yeah, there's gonna be some changes. It's gonna be more acceleration based, not as much max velocity. But at the end of the day, speed is stride length times stride frequency. And then you gotta understand how you manipulate those variables.
Agreed 100%. And what so going within those variables, like there's so much going around with respect to speed development, and you having a strength conditioning background though as well. Where does the weight room begin to help out? What is the limitations of the weight room in developing speed? And does one impact the other? Are they what's the level of correlation?
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts from that standpoint.
Well, obviously, when it comes to youth and young developing, obviously the weight room is going to be a big factor in improving acceleration and their speed, right? Just because natural absolute strength is low, so you increase absolute strength and power output. Obviously, they're going to put more force into the ground, and they're going to naturally get faster, and so a good, proper, long term development in the weight room for youth kids is huge. I do believe that obviously everything is blocked. So you still want to start with again movement quality, movement expression, learning the proper hip hinge, learning and feeling your body. So teaching proper progressions of the Olympic lifts to the front squat, and not going quickly to loading, uh, external loading. So, not going quick into heavy squats, front squats. To me, everything is still being properly progressive in the training of the weight room. But then I also look at it as that, right? I think we get, obviously from the strength and conditioning point, everything is a push and a pull. How many times
Right.
ratio, you want to do from that. But I think we always got to look at the bigger picture of what are the key lifts that are important that's going to increase the absolute strength to power output. Obviously, that's going to be your squats, your deadlift, and some will throw in the bench, and then after that, and then Olympic lifts. After that, everything's auxiliary lifts.
Right. And is the so I think the power output is a big component that I think we're developing absolute strength helps in the frequency and stride length, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the absolute power can obviously the more force you're able to generate, you're able to uh, if you think about sprinting like a fast version of jumping, right? You're generating more force, which means by generating a certain extra force, you're able to generate a slightly larger stride length,
Yep.
and then obviously then the capacity, which is the other argument, is on the frequency part doesn't impact frequency. Well, the force I think helps with stride length because of the power output, and then how fast you move the bar allows you helps you to increase with frequency, right? So, don't.
I'll push back on that one.
Okay, cool. All right. So that's what I want to hear. So,
Yeah.
right. So that's my thoughts on it. But from a lifting standpoint, so talk a little bit. I would love for you to talk about that and
Yeah.
and tell me your thoughts on it.
So again, my opinion is coming from a track based,
Yep.
right? So team sports is going to be it is going to be different, and
How is
so
it different though? How is it different? Because if it's all speed, whether you're going right, left, straight, it's still speed, right? So
yeah.
okay, so got continue. I'll let you go. Got
Yeah.
it. I'm just curious.
So right, because obviously, you're when you accelerate, your ground contact time is longer, and then as you keep getting faster, then your ground contact time goes it goes less, right?
Okay.
So ground contact time at the beginning of acceleration is a lot longer. You're spending more time on the ground. As you start getting faster and accelerating more, okay, your ground contact time becomes lesser. Okay, and it's like Ken Clark talks about and stuff.
Yep.
Everything is about limb velocity
Yep.
and creating the speed of the lower leg whipping from the hip to create that scissor action, especially in acceleration, even max velocity. And so that's where the pushback is. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you're doing bar speed of moving the bar fast, let's say in a hang clean or a pull for half pull from the knee, or to a jump squat. Like, yeah, you're moving things faster, but it's more in a vertical plane, right? And so
Okay.
really, to me, I'm like, to increase the bar speed, you're putting you're driving your force into the ground in the lift, and you're improving your projection of your hips,
Got it.
right? Has nothing to do with limb velocity at all. At all. So, to
What about like stuff on like a 1080 machine or a T Apex, T Apex, or like resistance sprints or overspeed? Does that
I would say acceleration based for for loading for acceleration based. This is where I'm a little
Hmm,
bit different. If I'm talking from, you know, youth to 10-year-old to, let's say, even, high school, my initial question goes, before I add any load to in doing those things, do they have proper acceleration mechanics? And are they properly moving? Because if I add any kind of load, I might make it worse.
got it?
So I always go back to the movement. Back to the movement. Are they efficient without load first? If they're not, if I'm going to add load, my question is, am I doing it to get them more proficient? Are they spinning their wheels too much? Are they overstriding? Are they too leaned over at the shoulders, and the head is down and the hips are back? Like, and so I then go, okay, if I'm gonna load them, what is the proper load to get them in a better position? Does that make
Yep,
sense?
absolutely. Um, yes, and there may be so. I also think that there's certain things biomechanically that each athlete has that's different.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a so like if you watch Usain Bolt run, and I'm just looking, going at the extremes
Yeah.
here, but you watch Usain Bolt run, you watch Michael Johnson run, you watch Jesse Owens run, you watch Carl Lewis run, and you watch Noah Lyles run. All have slightly different mechanics,
Correct.
and obviously you would all say they all ran fast, right? But slightly different mechanics. So that's where I think it becomes tricky for the coach to identify the correct slight differences in mechanics
Mm-hmm.
for each body. Maybe it's body type or
Yep.
style of running that they project. I would love for you to talk about that part of it.
Yeah. I think this is where, I'm taking a little bit, because this has helped me too. Is, as coaches, we first need to, what are the common positions in acceleration, regardless of elite to non-elite, when it comes to
Got it.
acceleration, right? Where's the foot at in relation to the hip? Where's the shoulders at? Okay, where is the thigh at the free leg at touchdown? And right, like acceleration, when they first get out, it's say about 45-degree angle. Well, that angle is going to change based off of strength levels of the kid. And so I think for us as coaches, it's, let's first identify the key positions, key shapes, and then know, like, okay, there's going to be a bandwidth in that. Like, I'm not trying to get to this position like Carl Lewis or like Usain Bolt, because those are elite. But can I get into this bandwidth of these positions for developing youth athlete,
Like foot
right?
strike position,
Exactly.
arm action, right?
Yes, yes, posture of their hips to, where's the free leg at when at initial contact. Um, Are they each acceleration? Is their hip, shoulders, and shins, are they all staying together and rising at the same time with each step? Is their ground contact time, is it decreasing with each acceleration? Is their stride frequency increasing with each, And so I think just putting down on paper what are the positions that we want to see, and then knowing, okay, here's my bandwidth of kids. Now I need to coach within that bandwidth that I have. Right. And so that's where I might be like, hey, your freshmen, your eighth graders, I'm starting to pair, like, strength and conditioning coaches do a great job of doing that in the weight room already, right?
Right.
Hey, you four are on this rack because you're in this stage, and this
Right.
is where you're at percentage wise stuff. So we need to do the same thing when it comes to grouping, the same thing when it comes to working in speed development, acceleration development, and things like that and stuff. And so, right, you might have your seniors who are like, hey, you can do a TA Apex, you can do a 1080, but it might be only a group of 5 kids, right?
Right.
Or you might be like, hey, we got 3 groups of doing resisted runs, but those 3 groups they're programmed at a different level
Right.
of resistance.
Well, you have to
Right.
scale it, right? And I think that's what a lot of coaches almost like they struggle with that, because when, especially, look, if we're talking like, especially for us, like, right, like
You got
football,
30
you
plus
have
kids.
100%, like you have a large number of athletes, or even right now, like Coach Shu doing the track and field stuff, working with the sprinters for him. I mean, he has a large number of kids across a very wide
Yep.
range of abilities, or whatever that is.
Very wide
But, like,
range.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, we deal with it all the time, and the better you can scale that, like you referenced, that S&C guys do this all the time within the weight room. Yeah, because you can't put an offensive lineman who's, ripping 315 on the bench with a kid who's a wide receiver who can barely get the bar off his chest, right? And that's irregardless of age. I mean, that's just like they just do a good job scaling that because they've had to, based off of everything. Take that now and go in, take it outside the weight room and look at now when you're sprinting and doing those, it's the same type of scaling that you have to do. You have to
Yep.
modify and tweak and change and group in order for there to be a success factor at the end of it. Otherwise, you're kind of just cookie cuttering the whole thing, and that's not good for anybody. If anything, that's going to create injury. That's going to create, right? Like, or just
Yep.
lack of buy-in. Like, why am I doing this? I can't even do this, right?
Yep.
Like, you talked about fundamentals being important. Like, if this guy could jump in the air and do a full 360, land on his feet, keep going, and be whatever, okay, you're in one group. This guy can't even jump, and we're going to
Yep.
put him in the same group. Like, what disservice are you doing?
Correct.
And something that I've always battled with too is because when somebody's good at something or showed that they can even do it just in general, like, now it's almost like, oh, well, I don't have to coach that guy because he's good. Well,
Yep.
that's not fair to him either, right? Or her,
Correct.
right? Because why does the top athlete now all of a sudden get shorthanded for being good? Like,
Yeah.
if anything, those are the guys you should coach even more so, or be more detail oriented. If the next level is something that they're aspiring to do, I have to coach you harder so that
Yeah.
when you do get into college and that freshman year, you're now all of a sudden behind the 8 ball because you were just always good, or it was allowed to like slide because it made it easier for that coach to not have to kind of dial it up on an even more level, right? That's just, it's something that coaches, I don't think, look at. But the
Yeah.
scaling, it's just like teaching within a classroom. Like, you're going to have kids that get it. You're going to have kids that have no clue. And the majority are going to lie in that middle range where you have to put it all together. And that's something I think that's changed a little bit in coaching across all disciplines, or whatever you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Be cookie cutter. And here's what you do. Here's how you do it. And hopefully majority of it get it to a level where they can be successful, right?
Yeah.
Now with social media and almost like attention, with the attention that everything gets, I think it now has to scale even more so to the individual, especially when you're working with those
Yeah.
the higher level, lower level, like whatever it is.
Well,
Like it
and then
has to be more
the biggest thing
individualized.
too, I think, is important as in all of this, right? And this is a little caveat, and then we can get back on to sort of what we were talking about too. Is I mean, I'm guilty of it too. We're all guilty of it. Is our own ego. You know, we hear something or we get something, so we're known as copiers. We copy everything, or we grab something and we're like, oh, I really like this, and I'm going to put it with the kids that I have. The biggest part for me when I've grown as a coach, when I've found mentors that, hey, don't give me no fluff.
Right.
Critique the crap out of everything. Why are
Yep.
you doing this? What's the reason? Why? Well, how does this work with the backing of, sports science? Okay, you're saying you do this. Well, how is this affecting stride length and stride frequency then? Well, okay, you're doing this load. Well, but why? Where are you getting those numbers?
Right. Tear it apart. Right. Like literally put it under a microscope, diagnose, like give me every little tidbit I want to know.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. When I first had that happen to me, I mean, dude, I was scared.
Well, you
I mean,
almost take offense to it, right? Like it's
yeah,
almost like,
and I
oh,
did
what? You
not
don't
like it.
trust what I'm saying,
Yeah, and I
or
was like,
you
what
don't
the heck?
like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, honestly, being now in the private, majority of coaches across the board don't do a good job with that. Majority, right? It's very, here's my gate. I'm going to protect my gate at all cost. Um, and I don't want someone to ask me though.
Right.
Well, I think that's a big part
And
to it.
so,
Yeah.
I think that's where, you know, I'll be honest with you. Like when I was in college sector, and I'd go to SEC coaches because I always want to learn too from other people. I would start asking questions, and it would be, not all, but some would be like, "Come here, I'm gonna put you in the squat rack," and I'm like, "I know how to do a box squat already. Like,
Right.
this is not okay, whatever." And I'm like, "New Mike, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with this." You know,
It's a little
and
bit of
That's
so
a
ego,
that's a
right?
back
great.
on the whole velocity. I think the velocity
Yeah.
thing's good. Um, but there's always a proper place and time for it as well. To me, I'm like, you're trying to bake a cake, and we can't get lost so much of being skewed in our own bias
Right.
that all of a sudden we start focusing on one aspect. So I'll just throw, like, for example, like fly 10, right? And then all of a sudden we forget to do the other things, because if we do too much of one thing, it's going to positively affect something, but it's also going to negatively impact other aspects of overall athletic performance. So I think we got to also be careful when we're doing speed development, is that we're properly addressing all issues and not being too biased in one area. So we as coaches got to always sit there and be like, what is my biases? Why do I lean towards that way? How can this negatively impact overall athletic performance at the same time?
I think that's a really important part. Is
You're muted, coach,
oh, I
I
am.
think.
Am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Coach can hear me.
Oh,
Can you not
I
hear
can't
us,
hear
Coach?
anything.
Can you?
Oh,
Can you?
no, I can. I can hear you, Dave. But if Coach can't hear us, it might be because he did. Maybe he went out and went back
You
in.
had a call real quick. Yeah, maybe because you had a call.
Hang on, let me see if he
Yeah,
goes.
you should go out and come back in.
Looking out and then
Um,
back in. Can you hear
there
us
you
now,
go.
Coach? No. Oh, how about now? Let's see if he comes back in. Should we work? Still nothing.
Maybe go. Maybe log off and then come back in.
Let me see.
Text him to log off, like, or just close. He's on his phone, I think, like I am. Close it and then and then reopen it and come back in. I think because that's what I had to do.
Maybe. Let me see.
That may be the
Might be the issue.
yeah. That's what happens to me when I get a call. I have to literally just go back out and go back in,
Right.
like
Yeah.
completely log out and then completely log back in, and then it seems to work after that. I don't know why it does that, but it should be
Right.
there again. Yeah,
Got it. Makes
let's see if it
sense.
works. Can you hear us now?
I can hear. I just went out and went back in.
That's what you
Yeah.
have to do. Yeah, I have to do that too. I don't know why.
It's
I
just
had to do
it's
that
something with
quickly.
either the mobile app aspect, or it's with something, whatever. But it's. I
Yeah.
told you, Coach, we've got enough of the troubleshooting aspect when it comes to the IT department, buddy. We've done a lot of dealt with a lot of it. So at least not on the Wi-Fi, so we're good there.
Yeah. So when it comes to, like the velocity standpoint, and the reason I say like we also got to think of limb speed, and anything in the weight room from a track and still field standpoint and true sprinting, nothing comes close to matching the velocities of what you do in the weight room that takes place in sprinting.
When you run.
And so
So how do you improve that without? How do you improve libs? Because just pure sprinting will help it, and doing different drills with that will help it. Are there some sort of stimulation drills that you could get to trigger leg speed or hands?
yeah,
arm/hand speed to get that quicker with
I
because they're
th-
good. I'm sorry, good.
I think right again it goes back to one, your box step ups, what's the height of them, what's the purpose. Obviously there's always a progression, of okay, I'm going from a bigger box step up that's 90 because that's going to more elicit more of your first part of acceleration to okay, now I'm doing a 6-inch box step, and it's powerful and it's quick, to same thing of okay, I'm doing a lighter um a lighter power clean, but when they come up they go into a lunge with the power clean, right? Because now they got to bring the back foot forward into a split position. um I think there's just so many different things to look at of going okay, if I want to try to increase limb speed, what things could I do that's going to be close to that? So, like, one thing I am a little biased in is I think every single weight room should have a multi hip machine. They
Yes.
used to have them, and now they're gone.
I don't why did that happen? I thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me when I was in eighth grade. I actually pulled my hip flexor in football. Like I was growing really fast. Turned the corner, my hip flexor popped. I spent 3 months at rehabbing on the multi hip machine. Came out of there, I was a bullet. I was like, wait a minute, what? So I felt like there was a certain capacity. And from that point forward, even though I never saw a multi hip machine ever again. Not where I went to college. Never had one. Um, I played at UConn, which Division 1. I mean, we didn't have one.
Yeah.
They may have one now. I don't know, but back then they didn't have one. So I used to do these hip exercises for myself manually to try and somewhat mimic it. And I thought it helped, but I always thought that was the greatest machine ever. And now, like, I go on Facebook Marketplace. They actually sell them,
Yeah.
but you got to figure out a way to get them and put them in a space. That's the hardest part,
Yep.
right?
Well, I think it's sort of every again to me it's like it goes back to the person's bias, the head strength conditioner's bias. They're like, oh, because think about it, right? Back in the day, there was not a lot of reverse hyper machines.
I have
Now
4
they're yeah, now they're loaded with them,
in a high school weight
right?
room. I
Gotta
have
get
4.
it. And other things, right? You'll have some like, okay, right now the thing is, hey, you know what? We're not having a certain amount of dumbbells over this weight because this
Right,
just
because
is what I
Texas
think.
Tech a couple weeks ago put out that they eliminated every dumbbell under 40
Yeah.
pounds, and that was a
So I
whole.
think the answer to that is just because it's again its own bias. I don't think so. I think it's a waste. I think I can get a bigger output And a
Right.
lot of times, if we ask ourselves, why do we pick the acceleratory lifts that we do, it's most likely because of our own biases.
Right.
We're not sitting going, how does this accelerated lift impact what the athlete needs to do on the field? And at what velocity is it at? What's the gap? How can I bridge that gap to make it less? And so that's where I'm like, I just say those things because, right, it all depends on who you have, what's your budget, to what equipment you
It
have.
also has a lot to do too, and we've talked to a lot of coaches about this too, is just like what kind of culture do you want? Right? Like
Yes.
that buys into it as well. Like, look, you want to be go about a philosophy where we don't lift dumbbells under 40 pounds. Like, okay, like that's just that program's way of doing it. Or, you know what I mean? Like some guy, and look, I compare it a lot to like, you know, recruiting in some aspect. Like a kid that's on your board at one school is not on somebody's board at another school, right? So a
Yep.
little bit of it has to do with that. Or, if you're talking high school, you're talking budgets, like you're talking space, like literally square footage. I don't have room for a machine like that, right? Because
Yep.
look, I also think every weight room should have a neck machine in it in some way, shape, or form, right? Like
Yep.
that's not something that a lot of people have at all. That would be either something you go out of your way to, or something that you don't even think about in anything, right? So I think a lot
Yeah.
of the culture and the program alignment has to do with some of those things as well. A coach's perspective on certain things like that ties into it. I mean, obviously, you would hope that your strength coaches and your athletic staffs are aligned in how everybody looks at it, but especially in the high school world where, look, in your state, it's a little different than my state, right? I mean,
Yep.
Texas, probably the majority employ a full-time strength and conditioning coach at the high school level. In Jersey, that's almost unheard of, right?
Unheard
Or
of.
if it is, it's somebody who is also a phys ed teacher, or it's, hey, that's the football coach. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it's just that's a totally, everything is its own separate entity. Just like we talked about scaling workouts to the athletes that you have based off of abilities and those types of things. It's the same way when we're talking about, just approach overall, right?
Yep.
It's always going to be about your team, your philosophy, how you do things. And look, there's the crazy part about it is there's 1,000 ways to do it successfully, right? I mean,
Yep.
you're talking guys that 100% are feed the cats guys, and it's all about, you know what I mean? Like that world, and they win championships. And then there's guys that are the total opposite, still doing gassers and crushing their guys or whatever, and they win state championships too, right?
Yep.
So it's just this I don't want to say conundrum, but it's a wide open world of, hey, it just what works for you. Figure it
Yeah.
out and go with it.
Yep. Yep. And then back to the question too of what are some things that you can do to improve, limb velocity. It's not always strength based. It can be to an extent. Majority of kids that I see, right, if you're increasing their absolute strength and their power, right, like you said, coach, earlier, their stride length will improve. If their force application is in the right position, their stride length will get longer. Uh, I would say the
Coach,
majority.
on that too, and I don't want to interrupt you, but like measurables, how much does that factor into that aspect of it as well, right? In regards to, because obviously, my viewpoint comes through like the high school athlete, and for the most part, like I'm not dealing with a lot of like, you know what I mean, like six whatever, the
Yep.
measurable aspect, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that play as big of a factor in that as others?
I think this is where the only way you know what that is, right, is you got to measure the stride length, stride frequency. The downside is with high school and people that have big groups, time efficiency. Okay,
Right.
that sounds great,
Right, but I don't have time to measure
but
50
I
athletes.
don't have
Like,
time to do that.
right.
To like I don't even have a student assistant
Yeah,
that
no, it's
can.
me.
Yeah. Or like, you know what? Like that's great. And I can sit there and say, well, film every single fly 20. And then okay, so now you want me to spend 20, a week to go back, watch every single film, count every single stride, and then put it into a calculation so I know what the stride length, stride frequency is. I mean, you could, but right? People are like, I don't have time to do that. Like, I don't have time.
Right.
And so it's a catch 22. And so for me, I'm like, okay, yes, could you measure stride length? 100% you could. But at the end of the day, is that something that from that level do you really want to get in the weeds? No. And so for me, it's sort of like improve their stride frequency. Right? And so, right, majority of everyone's gone crazy on the wickets. Right?
Yeah.
If wickets are set up properly, then yes, you will improve stride frequency. You're going to get them, they have to reposition their limbs quicker, get the foot down quicker, have things more underneath their center of mass. Um and so from what I've seen, what I've measured is from a female standpoint, high school females, depending on skill, bandwidth, you're looking at anywhere between 1.8 to maybe 2 like 08 meters for their stride length. Men, you're going to look at anywhere between 2 to, going all the way to high school men, you're probably going to be at like 2.3. And so I think, right, as a coach's eye, you can sit there and see like who's reaching, who's got the longer stride, and that's where you can sit there and be, okay, I'm grouping these kids, and then saying, okay, group one, you're going through the wickets at 1.8, right? Group two, you're going the wickets at 190, right? And then so you're gonna have multiple wickets set up. And then as you go through, you can sit there and be like, yeah, the wickets are too close for them. It looks like they're just stabbing the ground. They
Right.
look like they're not going anywhere. Okay, let me bump you up to the next group of wickets. To, hey, you know what? You're in this group of wickets. I can tell you're really reaching.
Right.
And so let's bump you down. And so for me, stride, improving stride frequency and is going to help improve their turnover, which then it helps going to improve their limb velocity. Um, I also would say, gallops, skips, bounds,
If they can do them.
yeah, right. But right, it's the progression. But if you can start mastering that, right, you're now working on movement. You're working on them paying attention. But those are gonna help as well.
Right.
And so those are just some. Obviously you can get really in the weeds of like, well, you know from a sprinting standpoint, right? I mean, Stu said this in Altus, and when he said it, I was like, good point. It's some of the drills, it's just all hip flexion, like a skip, it's all the hip flexion. Well, you're not carrying your center of mass forward. Everything's just straight up and down, and it's just constantly hip flexion. And so I think that's where also too, as coaches, we got to sit there and like, why are we doing what we do for our drills?
Right.
What's
And
the
that's
purpose?
across
What are we
sports,
trying to
coach.
get out of it?
Like, look, and especially with social media the way it is, right? Any of these guys, or even just the information that we can go and get now, right? Like, I could have a football coach and he can have every drill under the sun. He can go to YouTube and he could get, wide receiver drill, running back, whatever, DB, all that stuff. And he can go and do 10 minutes of individual. But does that individual drill that you're doing align with what we're going to do when we come together as a team? Right?
Yep.
Or is it going to mimic? How close of it can you make it to get to a game like situation? Because to me, and obviously I speak through the football lens, because that's where I'm at, right? And it's really hard because football is different like that. But how can you get what we're doing in practice to mimic a game-like situation in terms of everything, speed, right? Just overall, just how you're approaching it. Does it mimic what happens in a game to get these guys to feel that with actually
Right.
being in a game, right? And that's what's
Yep.
really, really hard, because it has to align. Like what we're teaching
Yep.
here
I think
has to now
force
go
change.
into here and in there.
I love for
Go
you to
ahead, Dave.
talk a little bit about that. Force change, meaning like changing of speeds. So we're doing, let's say, A skips into a 10-yard sprint, or we're doing broad jumps into a 5-yard burst, or a 10-yard burst, or 10 whatever. Um, I found that like, it ends up applying to sports. Not it applies to track. It applies sprinting. It applies to sports too, right?
Yep.
So to me, like I found that like when you're trying to get them to change the turn to freak, I think the wickets are good for that. I think you're 100% right. Like you gotta you gotta be able to watch them go over the wickets and know, okay, wait, his stride is too big in this. That's not what we want to accomplish in the stride. So there is a lot to that, and time does become an issue with that with wickets, because you're those damn things you cut. As soon as someone clips them, I mean, that's I hate to say it, but that's 30 seconds, right? Like,
Yep. Well, and
and
the crazy part is that this is where social media's gotta, took the crazy part. But the person that was originally behind Wickets has been around for a long time, 80s,
a long
70s,
time.
way
Yep,
back. They were not the 6-inch banana hurdles. They were just sticks on the ground.
correct.
They were paint sticks, right? But all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see someone doing wickets over the 6-inch. I see someone doing wickets over 8-inch.
Right.
And again, it goes back to, okay, how I'm setting up the wickets. Am I actually helping the speed, or am I hurting the speed? Am I helping foot contact, or am I hurting it?
Right, because we
It's
don't want them to drive up. We want them to drive. The
down.
knees have got to come forward, and at a certain point, they end up driving up, which is counterproductive to what you want them to do. It's a shift in their foot pattern, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm curious. Like, is there like with frequency, like I've always found that changing speeds, even with sprinters, you know what I mean? Like changing speeds creates frequency, creates a change in twitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is very, very hard to do when you accelerate into max speed, right? Or top speed. So that's hard to do because that's a progression build.
Yep.
But like when you change speeds, however you want to do it, that could start to create frequency and maybe some level of adaptive change. I'm curious. First of all, do you do that kind of stuff? But that's one of the things over the years that I found. Like, when I see a kid that like lags with his leg speed, right? Maybe has a big stride but lags leg speed. Um, I got to do stuff like that. Like I got to do it because they just can't turn it over quick enough, right? So,
Yep.
uh, um, I don't know. Talk a little bit about that.
So right, you're right. It's watching the kids, seeing what you see. What you described, is bleed runs. We're using two different, going to high knees into form runs, or you're doing straight leg shuffles into you know top end sprinting, or you're going straight leg bounds to acceleration. Um, I think as you watch, and again, this is the hard part when you have a big group, is not every cue is going to be the same for every athlete,
Right.
right? And so one is just more, and again, it goes back to my number one of just movement expression, feeling their limbs. Majority of kids don't know how to ankle. Some call them anklings. Now everyone calls them dribbles.
Dribbles, right?
Major
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, I've learned real quick that when I was doing the dribbles, I was flat foot contact, same thing. But I learned real quick that, oh, I even myself, I was teaching dribbles wrong. And so what I'm seeing is the more efficient the kid can get into dribbles, the better all that limb velocity, learning how to whip from the hip, drive the thigh forward, drive the thigh back down to the ground, the better they will improve in those things. And so for me, at times I would use it or not, but I would do, hey, we're going into dribbles over the calf, then into acceleration, or we're going dribble over the calf to dribble over the knee into sprinting and stuff. And usually for me, my cue is always never lift from the hip, right? The lifting is going to come from the pushing into the ground, right? I always use the analogy. It's like a tennis ball. If I just drop the tennis ball from 6 inches, the ball's going to come up a little bit. But if I really slam down the ball really, really hard, the rebound is going to be higher, right?
Right.
And so the force application into the ground is going to bring the knee up in max velocity. In acceleration, it's literally it's the old saying of rip the foot off the track. Track is hot, rip it off, right? A lot of kids want to leave the foot behind. So a lot of times I'm saying push and punch the knee forward, or rip the knee forward as quickly as possible. In max velocity, when there are wickets, I'm literally using drive the thigh down into the ground and stuff,
Drive the thigh down. Got it.
right?
Okay.
Or quickly drive the thigh back.
Drive the thigh back. Right. And then when you say like, then drive it back forward, like the cue a lot of time it's not a pull through, right? You don't want them to hit the ground and pull through. I mean, that cue, they pick up on that cue, but in the long run, like that cue could be good temporarily pull through, but eventually it
Correct.
has to be. Eventually, if the transition from pulling through, that will eventually won't be fast enough either, right? So,
It depends, yeah. I mean,
okay,
that cue might stick for a while and might not stick at all.
right.
So and again, I think that's where, I'm a little biased in this. This is, me seeing it myself too. Back in the day, right? Old school coaches would put on 1 pound ankle weights. Like people are like, man, that's crazy. But now sitting there like, okay, if it was less than 1 pound, now they're starting to feel, you're forcing them, they have to feel their limb,
Yeah.
right? Now there's all of a sudden like, oh, and so that's where Exogen, and even for me, the activator belt comes into play. Is just like they're starting to feel their limbs now. They have to be aware of what they're doing and stuff.
Is
So
that
like,
like the weighted things around Exogen? That's
yeah,
the weight.
uh,
Uh, and it kind of is like more like like almost like
a
it
wearable.
right, a wearable. Um, I had heard of people doing. I've never done this, but I was just curious. Where they would have almost like an Exogen on like one limb and not on the
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
Do you think that creates like an adaptation that you might want?
Oh, it does.
Okay. I've never done it. I've never felt it either. I've
Yeah,
never done
it
it and I've
does.
never I was curious.
So think, right? If you're doing in the weight room, let's say you're doing a cable, you got the cable on the ankle, and you're standing, you're doing an driving the knee up with the cable,
Right.
right? Or you're driving, now you're facing the cable machine and you're driving the whole lower leg, the thigh back with the resistance of the cable. Right, it's amazing even with the cable, right? Right, what happens if you put it around their knee? Right, all of a sudden, like, oh, this changes things because you'll see a kid, they'll do that cable pull and they're trying to pull it through with their ankle, with their lower leg, compared to no, 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 no. And that's why again it goes back to, I'd love the multi-hit machine, because think about where you could adjust the padding, right, of where you had it on the leg. You can have it right at the thigh. You can have it mid thigh. You can have it right at the knee. You could have put it down towards the lower shin of the multi-hit machine. Well, because now you're changing where the vector is of where they have to pull or push with their lower leg.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting because you're just trying to create that adaptation where it's not there currently, right?
Exactly.
So
And you're just trying to get them to feel.
feel what it might be. Yeah, yeah.
As you guys know, everything about younger kids is they don't feel. They don't know what they're doing. They can't feel their body,
They can't feel their body. Makes a
right?
ton of
And I
sense.
mean, and think about it, right? It goes back
They've
to
never been asked to talk about it, right, or understand it. Like it's
yeah.
just a totally new perspective because it's never been brought to their attention that
Yep.
it's something that would matter.
Well, and this is where again I'm a little biased. This is what happens when you take true general physical education out of the school system and you replace it with
Ah,
sport specific off-season training.
Yep.
yep.
You just shot everything in the foot.
I'm in full agreement on that. We actually have had a huge discussion about this a few times, where we're like the old school physical education program that they pushed out of the school systems everywhere almost now. And even if there is physical education, it's not the same way that it was, where you did general preparation, physical development. Like it's it's gone away, and the athlete requirements are different because of it. Like the way that you have to develop them becomes different because they don't have that general base of physical education, coupled with the fact that they play less, right? Which probably did a little
Yeah.
bit of that for them too, right?
Yep.
Um, and I just had a discussion. I don't want to say at school, but a guy that I'm good friends with, who's a football coach, but he doesn't coach the sprints, but friends with. We're all friends with this guy, and he's an old school sprints coach. Old school, meaning like the his philosophy is remember the Baylor, the great sprint coach from Baylor for the 400 meters. Like that's how he
Hmm.
coaches his sprinters, like which by the way, for the 400, there's I still think that's probably the best way, even though a lot of people argue differently. And the 400 is different than the 100 and 100 110 hurdles and stuff like that. But the debating that's not the main thing. The big thing was this. A lot of his athletes now get hurt with that training philosophy. And I was trying to explain to my buddy, but I told him you're never going to get through this guy on this because he's just been doing this for so long. He's produced X amount of champions. Like you're not going to have that. You're not going to be able to have that conversation. But what's happening is a lot of his top sprinters are getting hurt very early in the season. Well, the reason
Hmm.
why maybe 15, maybe 20 years ago they did not, okay, because they had years and years of a base underneath them that I don't know what you want to call it, whether it's general prep or general strength, or I don't know what it is, but that load did not affect them as negatively as it does now. Those
Yeah.
kids in that same load, I'm sure produced. He himself was a great sprinter, and I know where he comes from and the way the philosophy was. And they used to produce sprinter after sprinter after
Hmm.
quarter miler after quarter miler
Yep.
after quarter miler after. But now these guys are getting hurt a lot, so I just think that's a big part of it. And it's funny because these guys all coach together in football and stuff, and they're all, there's a lot of questions going around with it. But I think really it's not that he quote unquote is doing something wrong. It's that the athlete's general preparation of over all the years,
Oh, it's
he,
completely different.
right. So he really has to adapt because of that. It's not
Yep.
that what he was doing 20 years ago, I produced all these champions. Yes, it's them that's different as far as they're leading up to all. Now you're getting them in high school. All those years before, they're not as strong in certain
Yeah.
aspects as
Well,
they
and
are
and
years ago.
they weren't doing as much back then.
Capacity, right.
And so nowadays you have, I mean, right, like you got 7-on-7 going on during track and field, during spring
Right.
sports. You have off-season football that's mingling with spring sports. You have clubs that travel are mingling with practices, so you have kids doing multiple things across the board. And, I mean, I'll just say it. Majority say they communicate well. I say bull crap, because if you ask your soccer coach what that kid is doing with soccer, and the track coach what that kid is doing with track, there's no communication. There's
None.
definitely no communication between off-season football and the spring sports. And
None.
so, okay, we're doing sled pushes here. Oh, but the track coach was also doing acceleration work, or they did heavy squats and all this heaviness in the weight room. Well, you just trashed the kid to even get anything out of track practice. So there's multiple loads going on. And so, of course, there's more injury. The other thing, too, is like you said, kids are outside, they're in slides, they're not barefoot, so lower leg
Had this
muscle
discussion
tendon
as well.
is
That just like
terrible.
the overall, like just what they wear on their feet on a day-to-day basis. Like we've had this discussion, right? Like the young
Yep.
kids, like they're in slides, they're in Crocs, they're in moccasins or whatever. Just they're not in sneakers. Like it's just a
Yeah.
different. It all plays.
Yep.
It all goes into it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I think that's the part that coaches have to realize, that like none of your athletes are actually with you in the same capacity that it might have been 20 years ago.
Yep.
And even younger coaches coming in the game, they may not realize it themselves. And
Yep.
so I think that like that leads to the fact that, like, to me, there's, when you're doing actual training, speed or strength, you're really better off getting um a few really good things done
Mm-hmm.
and giving
And
them the
repeat it
breaks,
over and over again.
and just get it. And if you're going to use variety, it's like one set of this or one set, like, and people are like, one set, I'm like, yeah, why, like why
Yeah.
bother, why are
Well,
you
and
bothering?
and that's
They're
the thing
running in
where,
these other things anyway, right? Like, I know it may not be the running you want them to do. I get that. It may not be the load you want them to do. I get that. But you have to, you're almost a therapist when you're developing speed. Like, you're working around the things that they're doing
yep.
versus what you want. Now, when you do have a guy that's, ends up down the line coming in all in and just doing this, obviously you're gonna be able to do the program exactly how you want it. But
Yep.
I'm curious your thoughts on that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah,
there.
so that's where we gotta always think, right? We're always gonna train towards our bias. We're gonna train towards a philosophy or theory. And again, that's where as coaches we gotta go, okay, is this my own philosophy and theory that I've come up with the kids that I have? Or am I copying and pasting a concept and a theory that someone else has come up with? And we do that way too much. Way, way too much. And so, like, give you an example, like, right, if I'm going to do 3 250s for a track and field athlete, for a 100, 200, even 400 guy, am I going to do that for a team sport athlete? No. But am I going to work speed endurance with a team sport athlete? 100%. But is it going to be in that range? No. I might sit there and say, hey, we got 30s, but I'm only giving you 30 seconds rest. And we're doing 5 of them, and then we're resting between set, and we're going to do it again. Right? And so, again, I think it goes back to, you got to understand what's your purpose, why you're trying to work it. I mean, I'll just throw this out here. I know someone that did uh 5 flies. No, sorry, 10 flies, and they worked up. It was a 5-10 fly, and then it was 15-20 fly, and then it was, I think, 20 to 10 fly, right? And they did a total of 10 of them. And I asked the person, like, well, how much rest in between? He said, maybe 2 minutes. I'm like, that's not speed development. You did nothing there except you just got drilled
Mhm.
and stuff. And so, you know, again, it goes back to what is you're trying to work on. What are you trying to get? Because if I do a 5 into a 10 fly, obviously that's more acceleration thing, right? I'm measuring a 10 fly, but I'm only giving 5 meters, 5 yards to accelerate. Well, the better they accelerate and the more efficient they accelerate, that 10 fly is going to be better. So I'm not really truly measuring max velocity. I'm measuring how efficient and how well they accelerate and quickly, you know? And same thing of like, okay, I'm doing a 20-yard fly into a, I'm doing a 10-yard fly with a 20-yard lead in. Why? That might be enough running for some to hit their top end speed. You might have to go out to 30 before someone hits top end speed and go from 30 to 40 to measure fly 10, right? And so again, I think it just goes down to what are you trying to do? What's the purpose, right? And at the end of the day, okay, you're doing a fly 10. What are you measuring off of it? Right? Like I know you guys mentioned like, hey, we're recording ranking, it's a big thing. I get it. But what is that fly 10 telling you besides
Mhm.
just, oh, they ran faster?
Right.
What's the point of oh, we're hitting max velocity? Are you sure you're hitting max velocity?
Right.
Right.
Are you really? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question goes into, okay, you hit max velocity, you're improving it, but don't we want to extend max velocity? So what are you doing to extend max velocity so they hold the velocity longer?
Right. That's a great point. Right.
And then now, okay, you got their max velocity, but now we got to do stuff to extend it. But then it comes down to, okay, well, I do have, just like the weight room, right? We have to build and work on and build some work capacity.
Yes.
So in which areas are we trying to build work capacity? And it's not going to be just one area, it's going to be multiple areas. And then eventually you can get to a point, well, you just don't keep building the capacity, because eventually, like you said in the weight room, there comes a time where it goes the other way. You don't just
Correct.
gonna keep building building. Well, eventually you're gonna break. You
That's a
know.
great point. The 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 capacity part is a part that a lot of the speed guys are not talking about.
No.
So
And
they
the
talk.
density and when and how much.
That's correct because they're only worried about either acceleration or hitting top speed. Um, but maintaining top speed, like if you think about it, even in football, right? Like, okay, so someone accelerates quickly, hits top speed in 15 yards, but the guy who breaks the touchdowns over and over again is able to hold that speed through 40, 50 yards and not get caught, right? Or
Yep.
continue to grow it, right? To a certain point. And we're leaving a lot of that out of it, right? Because the whole
Hmm.
emphasis is on this 40-yard dash and the acceleration phase, and then everything trickles down. So you watch the NFL, and everybody train I'm a trained acceleration, which is one part of it, right?
Yep.
Um, and then top
They
speed. Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Go ahead. No,
yeah.
go
No,
ahead.
good.
Keep going. No,
No,
because I was gonna say too, right? Is okay. You're working the fly. You're doing all this stuff, but how many kids can slow down, control it, and hit a brake, plant, and separate under control?
cannot.
Because
Right,
they can't. But yeah, we're doing all this stuff. Okay, but you're again. It goes back to how that gap. How are we bridging the gap between what we're doing to actually what takes place during the performance? It's just like one of the mentors. When he was, at a big NFL team, I asked him, and he's like, "Man, my number one job is are they available and ready to play on Sunday? If they are not, I'm going to get fired." So at the
Right.
end of the day, as those in the SEC, and again, this is where the pride is. They're trying to grab anything and everything to show validity for themselves. At the end of the day, your job is to make sure that they're ready to play.
right.
That's what it comes down to. And so to me, A lot of the stuff that we out there, and again, we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. We chase the numbers and record because it validates us.
Validates
True.
what you're doing, and you could show them. You could show them.
Exactly, but at the end of the day, how are you validating what actually matters? And you
Right.
can't.
Right.
And so they're like, "Well, I can't. I might be able to validate it some way by GPS or something." But again, yeah, it's to show they're improving from a metric standpoint, but are they improving overall as an athlete in their sport
Great
that they're
point.
playing?
Correct.
You
Correct.
know?
One other question I have too is, and that's a great point. Like, so one of the things that I was a hurdler in high school, and I thought it was a huge help to me as an athlete, huge help, as a football player. And it forced me to do up to certain things beyond sprinting, right? That
Hmm.
really, and it became very good at it. And obviously, you were a hurdler, you were an elite hurdler. Um, why have so many, and maybe it's just because they don't want to teach it. Maybe that's a simple answer. But why is hurdling, other than you still have elite hurdlers, right? Because there are going to be kids that see they're good at, but the middle of the road, like the kids that I used to race against, like there were so many guys that could run a good hurdle time. And now there's just like one guy that's great, and the rest of them are just absolutely atrocious. I see it over and over and over again. Like, I'm like, how is that possible? You know what I mean? So, eh, talk, from a hurdling standpoint. Like, first of all, do you think it benefits other sports that you might do? Number one.
100%.
Okay, and then there's a loaded question. It was obviously a loaded question. I'm asking a hurdler, so, but no, I thought it changed a lot of things for me athletically. My father made me a hurdler as a young kid because I was very fast, but there were people that were faster. But what the sidebar part of it was that I thought it made me a better, more coordinated athlete, right?
Yep, I agree
So
with that.
that rhythm and oh, got to go over obstacles. You got to coordinate your body, your limbs, all the things you're talking about. And I would argue it probably made me faster too, but it definitely made me more coordinated athlete, right? So,
Yes.
um, talk about first of all, what hurling does for athletes, and then I'm curious your opinion as
Yeah.
to why it's not done
I
as
think
much.
I think one as a hurdler, right? And I'll even throw in pole vault and
Yep.
throws. It's body awareness. It's kinesthetic awareness, right? At a high velocity, right? From a hurdling standpoint, if you're going for a guy, you're going over 39-inch hurdles. So dynamic flexibility and hip mobility comes into a big factor, right? And so naturally, the more dynamic flexible you can get, that's going to help overall in just movement, make you a robust athlete as well as being able to move in different directions. It's going to help open up your hips. So I will say this, doing 30-inch hip mobility over hurdles, does it really open up the hips? No, not really. But we do it anyway,
Right.
and then also too, right, the hurdles are fixed. So that means you only have certain amount of space in between each hurdle to do your three step. So now that teaches you to now, okay, I have to turn over my feet faster. So I got to shuffle. So that's going to increase your stride frequency as well. Uh, then from a mental standpoint, you can't be scared because if you're really running fast, it's gonna feel like you're gonna the hurdles are coming up fast. You got to be kamikaze. I'm willing to go 100 miles an hour in my Tesla, and a wall's coming, but I'm not gonna put on the brakes.
That's
You
why I
know?
loved it. I always thought it was the most fun thing in track and field too. Where else do you have something that could test your go fast and test your balls at the same
Yep.
time? Like,
Well, and I'm again biased in this.
yeah, yeah,
The best athletes are hurdlers. And you look back at those that were hurdlers that are in the NFL, Ted Ginn Jr., I mean, shoot, Justin Gatlin actually started off as a hurdler. He was not
Robert
a sprinter.
Griffin. Robert
Yeah,
Griffin was
Robert,
talking.
right? Uh, I mean, a lot of your positional players that made it in the NFL or even college were great hurdlers too. You
And
know, you
especially back in the day, like back in the old days, Roger Craig and
yeah,
that was one of the things that changed a lot with where there was all of a sudden like the guy just wanted to run the 100 meters, and I also thought that hurdling allowed you to go really fast with less likelihood of injury.
mm-hmm,
So because you're never really reaching you're doing turnover, but you're
yep,
not reaching like complete max head speed, but you're
correct,
forced to run incredibly fast and get
yep,
over something. And I thought it correlated a lot to sports. But do
it
you think a
does.
lot it's not used? Not as many guys are doing it because the teaching aspect of it.
I think there's a multiple factors. One, I would say teaching because I'm just not all, but majority of sprints or hurdle coaches are your football coaches. So track and field is not priority to them. It's football. So they're gonna sleep breathe that. So the hurdlers and sprinters are gonna get not full 110% of the coach because it's not football. Um, but I also think too is the sport specificity is being driven so much that to be a great hurdler, you got to dedicate your craft to be a good
True.
hurdler. You can't just come in and by, oh, hey, I'm gonna start hurdling 2 months and I'm gonna be really good. Like there's gonna have to be some intentionality of working the craft. And at the end of the day, is track and field is yeah. You'll have people say I want to be an Olympian, but from a male standpoint, I want to go to the NBA. I want to go to the NFL.
Right.
Right? They're not like, man, I want to be an Olympian hurdler. So that's when they go like, oh, I just want to run the 100.
Right.
I want to run the 4x4. I ain't doing that. So
Yeah.
that's why I say I think it's a multitude. And then the other thing is overall in the U.S. we have amazing talent pool.
Right.
So the talent's gonna naturally rise to the top, and like at the beginning of when we were talking, is coaches can get away with that talent, and so hey, I can coach a little bit, but they're still gonna be good regardless. And so, from a true hurdle development standpoint, we can get away with it. Unlike other countries in the world, where no, they have to develop their hurdlers and
Mhm,
develop
Right.
them correctly and progressively,
mhm.
just like the weight room. That's one thing great about strength and conditioning is they do a great job of progression
Right.
in the weight room.
And
you
that's what
know,
happened in basketball, which kind of was eye opening at the NBA level, where so many of the Europeans have become elite players over all the years of coaches in AAU just saying, "Hey, my player's great, just let him go, just let him
Yep.
play." What happened was now there were guys in other places, mainly in Europe, where they were actually coaching those great players all the way through and progressing them. And now you have, again, look, are the overwhelming best players for the most part American players? But what you're seeing is at the highest level, so many of these European players doing really, really well and becoming MVPs because they were coached through it versus athleting through it,
yep,
or
yep,
or having to figure it out yourself. Like a guy like Curry, he was self motivated, right? So
yep,
he took the shots necessary to become great. He didn't need a coach per se to push him, and obviously his father was a pro, right? So he
yep,
already had a certain bench. That's one of the other things I've noticed is that like kids of professional athletes or high level or like division 1 athletes or even just guys that just played in college, I've noticed because I'm now in the youth level, they all of their kids have a huge advantage. And I'm not just talking about talent wise. Yes, obviously there's a genetic component to it. I'm not stupid. I understand that. But they all have an advantage from a knowledge standpoint of what their parents were able to do, what they
Yep.
learned, good or bad, right? And they're able to translate some of it to their children. And I've noticed
Yeah.
that a lot of them have had a tremendous amount of success, um, which you would say is outlier versus the old way. Like, well, the old days that really wasn't the case. Now the children of parents who played at higher levels, um, have an advantage of knowledge.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about like the talent part. That part plays out itself. And there are people that are very talented that didn't have parents that play, but the knowledge of what to do step by step that can help them to become better. And they seem to be more balanced in their approach of going after high levels, meaning they understand what is out there and that there's always another great player on another corner. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Of the world, right? Like you understand it, I understand that. Like we played, we you competed. You know what it's like to go, I'm doing great, and then all of a sudden you run against that guy that's he's just better, right?
Yep.
And so it gives you a level of perspective when developing younger athletes that
Mhm.
you can instill on them that there's going to be somebody better, you
Well,
know?
and the
So
good
you
and
have
the cool thing too is right. Regardless of talent, one thing is always true, and you cannot get away from it.
Nope.
Skill acquisition and fundamentals of training.
no doubt.
So at the end of the day, it comes down to how good is that coach at doing those things.
Mm,
And I think like you were saying, like that's the difference with those that come from parents that made it at the pro level. They're saying no, 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 no. You need to have these skill sets and this foundation, and we're going to be patient in it, and we're going to build this.
Right.
correct.
We're not going to chase here, we're not going to go here, but also too of like, look, like I didn't have to do all these things
Right.
to do this.
Correct.
Still comes down to the skills, the fundamentals, and the basics.
And
If
you
you
know
can't
the
master
timing
those
of
things,
it.
it doesn't matter.
You know the timing much better of from what I've noticed is that these guys know the timing of okay, now it's time you can go and play this. Now it's the
Yes.
right or to be the ability to pull back. We tried this, it wasn't right for you. Pull back, do this instead. Like without I mean I had to develop like I developed I was able to see it pretty quickly, but I have friends that have done it, like a lot of the guys that play ball in college. I talked to them about it and they've done it with their own kids, like, hey, this wasn't working. I'm not talking about team wise, I'm saying like, okay, we'll try travel ball in X, right?
Yep.
Okay, no, that wasn't really working for my kid.
Yeah.
Go back to rec, go back to
Yep.
foundation, go back to this, and are not worried. They're much less worried about what their friend down the block says about it, right?
100%.
You know, so I mean
And
that's
and that
one
and
of
that's the
yeah.
thing where right you ask parents this, and I ask parents this all the time, especially in a group setting. I'm like, raise your hand of how many of you are concerned with their playing time and athletic potential at club or high school level. Everyone raises their hand. I'm
Everyone.
like, and then I said, now, how many of you are worried that they're behind academically and worried about their skill sets as a person and how they communicate? They all lower their hand. I said, ain't that a problem? Shouldn't that be
Mm-hmm.
the other way around? And they go,
Yep.
oh, crap, I never thought of that. I'm like, so you're letting society and coaches wag your tail.
Correct. That's a huge. We run 7-on-7 turns. We see it on the circuit, like,
Oh, yeah.
and and we've been a little bit immune because we have kind of a standard of how we run it. So I'm not gonna say that anything can't happen. Anything can happen, but we kind of have a standard of how we do things, which alleviates that. But we see it so much with like, dude, like, look how you're acting. Like,
Yep.
why are you acting like that? And
Yep.
I'm not
And then,
talking about when you're excited that you score. Everybody has a right if they're excited they score to be able to be excited about that. I'm talking about how you're acting, how you're talking to a coach, how you talk
yep.
to someone, a parent. Like how a person talks to another adult. Like I'm like, that's how you talk to an adult?
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like like
And it goes back to educating. As coaches, our responsibility to educate with the student athlete in mind. Majority of coaches say, yeah, we think about the student. To me, that's bullcrap. No, you don't. You think about yourself. You think about your resume. You think about your club or brand, or you think
yep,
about the high school,
agreed.
whatever. So let's just be honest, right? You don't. You might a little bit, but you're using it to cover up the lipstick on a pig. Um, and it's still, like you said, it comes down to, is this the right situation? Is this the right fit? Why are we doing this? Right? Like, so for example, like, what's the purpose of you doing 7-on-7? Right? If someone says, well, to get a scholarship. Well, wait a
No.
minute. That's not the right thing. Right? How good are you on regular football? Because 7-on-7 is not probably going to help with that. Okay. And then who are you choosing? Right? How's this going to help?
Who you're putting
Here.
your kids around.
Yeah, exactly. And then, okay, well, what are you trying to, get out of this? What do you want to try to do? And this is where, again, like I said, like, we're all guilty of it, parents, coaches included, is here, like in Texas, it's not included, but, okay, well, how are we going to get around the rules so we can keep doing stuff? Okay, let me develop a 7-on-7. Let me pair with this so they can run our offense and our style, and we get those kids to do those. Now I have control of my kids 24/7. And it's like, come on, but again, it goes back to any sport. I'm just using it as an example, right? And I
And
think
in
that's,
Texas, those high school coaches are paid full time to be high school coaches, so they're going to do it. They're going
oh
to do
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
So
So again, it goes
that
back to
becomes
the,
their livelihood. So
yeah, and it comes back to, again, the educating, the sitting down and going, okay, like I do it with every single person that comes to me. I'm like, what's your purpose? What are you trying to get out of it? Okay, is this the right fit? Is this going to actually help in that? Or, you know what, maybe you got too much on your plate. Maybe
right,
it's not the right timing right now. Or you're trying, your perspectives is you think magic is going to happen. Magic is not going to happen in that kind of time frame. And so I think that's the other thing where, as parents and as coaches, we got to have those hard conversations of going, hey, this is probably the better route. This is the better thing to think about, and let them make the choice.
agreed, no doubt. Very well said. Listen, before we let you go, where's the best way they could find you? If they want to reach out, work with you, talk to you.
Yeah. On X, it's tier one athlete. On Instagram, it's tier one athlete underscore. And
Perfect,
then website is tier one athlete dot com.
perfect. Those are great URLs, by the way. You got good job.
He
You're
was smart
smart.
in getting those. He got those real quick.
Yeah, smart man. Smart man.
I
Uh,
tried.
yeah. Hey, it's been great having you on. Great discussion. Great discussion. Really, really enjoyed the discussion with you. And we definitely gonna could stay in touch with you for the future. And it's been great having you on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I enjoy it and hearing perspectives and stuff. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about: is giving perspectives, listening, and learning, and going, what can I apply from maybe something I took away.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Justin. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. You guys have a blessed day.
You
Have a
too.
great day.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Great, great. That was really interesting. Really um some stuff that I was curious about that we've never. And I just realized that I have the thing from the last podcast on here. Just saw this
Well, when
now.
we were before, like when we were talking before you got it, like we talked about, and he's like, hey, what do you want? What do you want to talk about? How do you want to do it? You know what I mean, or whatever. And he's like, hey, like, do you, almost like, hey, am I good to say like what I like? Let it fly. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, 100%. I said that is kind of like what we want. He's like, because look, I get it. Like everybody has their own perspectives. Everybody has this or that. He goes, but some guys are like very, like they're not willing to really just come out and let it fly. And I told him, no, man, like that's what this is all about. Like we want this podcast and, our viewers to kind of, if you have a take on something that might not be, the norm, or your approach to something is different, then we want you to have a level of comfort where you can come on and let it fly. And it won't be, you won't be ostracized for it, right? Like, everybody's going to take away from it what they want to take away from it. But yeah, this is a safe setting. You know what I mean? So it's also nice to get a different perspective in terms of, where he's coming from, the background, right? Like, literally a sprint and hurdles type of guy that focuses on that specific, especially with, kind of some of the hot topics that are coming up now and stuff that we've been diving into even more so, within the sprints and in the sprints world, weight room and all that kind of stuff. So it was really good. I think he's got a nice little gig, right? And obviously that perspective of coming from college and then now going into the private sector and doing that kind of world, right? Like, it always gives us, our viewers, a nice taste of both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, he was a very high level athlete himself. He coached at a high level. It's very interesting because in a very, very short time frame, I would say since we started, what was it, 2 years we started like diving into speed stuff 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, almost 3 years. So we started diving into that. The factions in groupings in different camps that people are in with respect to, I find really interesting. Like, we've had so many of these guys on there, and our long term goal is to get 3 guys if we could ever get them. Ken Clark, I know you're working on it. Stu McMillan and Dan Pfaff, because those are the 3 guys that a lot of these guys all reference in some capacity, one way or the other.
Ken Clark, Stu McMillan,
and Dan Pfaff. I would say 2 of them are retired. They're not retired. I'm sorry. The 2 guys, Stu and Dan, run Atlas, whatever it's called, training or something. And but they were, like Olympic level coaches. And then, but they also work with sports specific guys. You know what I'm saying? So they're not just track guys; they were sports specific guys too. And then Clark is the guy that's at Westchester. That's the professor and track coach, and like this unique, and he does a lot of the he's similar. He's the young guy that you love that we had on that I also think is great. From he kind of is like a older version of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, researcher and coach
in terms of like the academic side of it.
Yeah, research. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that might be a really, really like if we ever can get one of them on, that would actually lead to all of them. But and maybe we can maybe at some point we go visit some of these guys on site, Derek. What would you think about that? Like, go to like Kula's facility, or go to, you know what I mean? Like, take a trip, like maybe like once every few months or something, and we go and
these guys, you know what I mean? Like, now that they just, most of them have their stuff and whatnot. Like, that would be, some of the stuff is always crazy. It would be awesome to see kind of in person.
The equipment, right? Like the equipment they use. I'd like to see some.
Yeah,
of that.
but that's, you love that.
How they do it, like watch them in actual sessions.
Right. Yeah, pull back the curtain.
Pull back the curtain. Like, if they were, I think they'd be willing to do it, because we've had them on, and we've had like fair, like pull back the curtain, see like, okay, and as they're training, like, cool, like how does this part fit in and stuff. I think it's interesting, and I also find very interesting like the following that, like, even locally, like some of these young guys, the following they're getting, I find it interesting.
Like who?
I can't think of his name. He does the running backs. I see it all over social media. Oh, what's his name? He played for Madawan, I think. He's young, super young. Anyway, I'll remember it. But yeah, like following, like from the time he started 3 months ago to now, like 20 plus guys going with him. You know what I mean? And on a consistent basis. So I think it's interesting. He's focused much more in the running back realm, running back slash speed. You know what I mean? But like in that realm, which I thought was interesting. Um, because if you were to ask me years ago, would anyone pay to get running back training? I wouldn't have thought too many people would pay for that because I could go do that most of it on my own. You know what I'm
Yeah, but
saying?
these guys always want somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's what's changed, right?
Yep.
Because that's changed. That's changed a lot. Like, and running back is a raw skill to me. To this day, like I still think like there are guys that have a raw skill there. You know what I mean? That are much better than others. Now you obviously can develop it. There's no doubt. But like to see where the hole is and to get through the hole and to feel it, like you could do a lot of drills, but there's some guys that are just gonna feel it, dude. You know, like, and they're just gonna feel it better than other people. And I don't care how much you train them in that aspect. They're
Yeah. Well, it's
dudes.
hard to also train that stuff in general, just because it's not a game like situation, and because of the way the running back position has changed throughout the years and all of that too, right? Like a couple of years ago, that was like a thing. It was like, is the running back dying? And it's just changed, like how many guys are 3 down backs, or how many guys are only in there to catch passes, or whatever it is. Like that's changed too, with it, kind of almost coming back more so now than it was before. I just think it's something that's definitely, I think any position is innate, you know what I mean? Like when it comes to that, like some guys just have those positional skills in them, but running back probably more than anything, just because I feel like you can't really train it as close to a game as other positions, right? Because you can't mimic like when a defender's coming here or it's coming here, like, you know what I mean? You can, but it's just in a game, instinct and all that stuff kind of takes over.
Agreed. I think that's definitely a part of it. There's a certain level, but I do, like there are stuff you can train with like reaction and things like that. But it's very I think it's interesting. So I can't remember the name now, but I'll remember it. But yeah, that was really good. That was a great discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I was like, look, this isn't like a you know what I mean? Like this isn't like a fire away and this type of that. I said this is more of a discussion based. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like where we're going to talk about kind of what you think, whatever, and like kind of that. It's different kind of setup where it's more of a general roundtable type discussion.
no doubt, really good stuff. Great work.
Tomorrow, head coach Shies Thacker from Davidson University. So it'll be awesome. I don't know if I'm saying
that will be phenomenal. I'll look forward to that one. And
yep, good, awesome.
And then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Have a great day, dude. Great job.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.